the UFC dropped the ball by not booking Shavkhat Rakhmonov versus Machado Garry at UFC 310?
I don't think that's an overreaction. I mean, I think if you look at maybe the most interesting style matchup, undefeated versus undefeated, that would have been a great way to sell the fight. Would have been pretty intriguing for the fans. You don't see people rally behind Machado Garry too often, just given his relationship with the fan base in recent years. But for this fight, I felt like there was a lot of support from it, from fighters, fans, all that stuff. I know the teams on both sides were interested. Both fighters seemed interested. As far as I know, that fight was pretty much made before all this stuff happened with Belal Muhammad, and they do need a main event for Tampa. Like, they were sorting through a few different options. They wanted Ian Garry and Colby Covington, and Usman was talked about, and then they ultimately settled with Buckley because Garry was like, I just want to fight anyone. Like, I want this to be my date. So yeah, it would have been easy, I'm sure, easier for them to find a replacement main event for that Tampa card than it is for this UFC 310 card. But I think that would have been the best fight to make, but ultimately the secondary option is looking like Kamaru Usman,
right?
And he's obviously got a decorated history and a legacy in this weight class. So if you're looking for name value, he's probably a decent choice too.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you hit the nail on the head for me. The reason why I'm so upset that this fight wasn't made is how many times do you get undefeated rising star versus undefeated rising star with UFC gold at stake? Because they're going to attach an interim title to it. I mean, that's a hell of a way to end the year with your numbered events. And so like it just seems like they dropped the ball. And if the replacement ends up being that it's Kamaru Usman, I don't know, man. That just feels like Usman coming off his losing streak. Do you really think Usman versus Rakhmonov, like, does Usman deserve an interim title shot?
It's one of those weird ones where you're like, you look at his history, right? And that's what you're saying he's deserving off. But like, given the 3 losses in a row, I don't know. It's tough to, like, the second Leon Edwards fight in England, or the third overall between them, was like, pretty even, majority decision. We know it was happening in the second fight before the head kick. He was winning handily. And then you look at what he did against Khamzat Chimaev on extremely short notice, up a weight class, like, commendable stuff there. So I don't know, like, I think you could sell it based on all those things, but on paper, it doesn't look great. I'd have to look into my records and see how many people have fought for a UFC title, interim, undisputed, BMF or otherwise, on 3 losses in a row. It's probably a very, very short list. There's been a lot of people who've had 2 in a row, but 3, not many. So it would be a little unprecedented. Obviously a desperate scenario here, but yeah, we'll see if they ultimately do that, because you hear some stories too about the sparring that's happened between Shavkat Rakhmonov and Kamaru Usman down there at Kill Cliff over the years, and I don't know how keen Usman would be to do this fight if those are true. I'm not reporting anything factual here, but you hear whispers, and but for him, there's a lot of upside there. I don't know if you're Usman, there's going to be a better opportunity that's going to come along for you than this.
Do you think, real quick before we move on to the next one, do you think the UFC, I mean, the favorable outcome I guess you would like here is for Shavkat to win, right? He's your rising star, but what happens if Usman actually pulls this off? I mean, then what?
I mean, from what we hear, there's this deleted podcast, right, between Belal Muhammad and Kamaru Usman that happened on, Usman and Henry Cejudo's show. And from the whispers you hear, it sounds like there was a physical altercation between those two. So there is some heat there. I think you could build that fight. But yeah, it does feel like an old head matchup. And I don't think the UFC matchmakers in particular are loving dealing with this welterweight division right now, because it's really tough to get these older crop, the Colby Covingtons, the Kamaru Usmans, to take these fights against these other guys, which ultimately they either fend them off, like you saw at lightweight with like Dustin Poirier and Benoit Saint Denis, or you lose, or they lose, and you get turnover, which is badly needed in this weight class. So yeah, I think in terms of like moving things forward, having Belal and Usman would be not great, but given their history, given Usman's resume, I think it is a sellable fight.
All right. Well, listen, I just wish they had gone with Machado Garry and Shavkhat Rakhmonov. Just a fantastic matchup right now at the right times in their careers. But hey, we're going to get what we're going to get. As of right now, we don't know what we're going to get, but it is looking like it's going to be Usman against Shavkat, but we shall see what happens probably really soon here. So
MMA Junkie AI.